the perfect Christian who never missed church. My name is Sophia, and for 24 years I never missed a single Sunday at church, not one, not even when I had a fever of 40 degrees Celsius at 16, nor when all my friends went to that party they talked about for weeks. Church was my whole life. I was the perfect girl everyone pointed to as an example. Today I am 25 years old and I am alive by a miracle because 8 months ago, on May 15th of last year, I died for 7 minutes, and what I saw on the other side taught me something no pastor had ever told me in 24 years of church. I discovered that my perfect attendance, my impeccable reputation, and my exemplary Christian life were worth absolutely nothing, and it almost cost me eternity. They called me the golden girl of our congregation in Medellin. For as long as I can remember, my life revolved entirely around those polished wooden pews and that smell of incense mixed with the perfume of the older women. My mother dressed me in my best clothes every Sunday, always in pastel shades, always modest, always impeccable. By age 7, I already knew more verses by heart than some adults in the congregation. At 12, I was leading the youth group. At 15, I was organizing retreats for teenagers, and by 18, I had a social media ministry with over 400,000 followers. I posted beautiful verses with sunset and flower backgrounds. I shared reflections on purity, holiness, and dedication to God. The comments were always the same: "You're an inspiration, you're so pure, so special, I wish my daughter were like you," and I completely believed it. Every like was confirmation that I was doing things right. Every comment fed something inside me that I now know was pure poison disguised as virtue. I looked at the other girls my age and felt a mixture of pity and superiority. They wasted their time at parties, in dead-end relationships, in empty conversations about worldly things. I was building my treasure in heaven. I was different. I was better. I never said it out loud. Of course, that would have been pride. And pride was a sin, but I thought it. God, how did I think it? I would kneel in my room and give thanks for not being like the others, without realizing that I had become exactly the Pharisee in the parable. The irony would hit me later with devastating force. My routine was perfect, calculated, unwavering, waking up at 6 a.m. for my private devotional, 45 minutes of Bible reading, 30 minutes of prayer, 15 minutes writing in my spiritual journal, classes at the Christian university where I studied theology and sacred music. In the afternoons, youth group meetings or choir rehearsals. On Wednesdays, Bible study. Fridays, prayer vigil. Saturdays, community service visiting nursing homes and orphanages, always with my camera ready to capture that perfect Instagram moment. And Sundays, of course, church, 2 services. Sometimes 3 if there was something special. There was no room for anything else. There wasn't really any room for me, though I didn't know it. So, my parents were proud. The pastor used me as an example in his sermons. The mothers in the congregation looked at me with that gleam in their eyes that said, "I wish my daughter were like you." But there was something no one knew, not even me at the time. My heart held secrets so dark they almost cost me my eternal life. The first crack in my soul appeared when I was 17. Valentina had been my best friend since childhood. We grew up together in church, shared secrets, prayed together, and I considered her a sister. When my parents had financial difficulties, her family helped us without asking for anything in return. When she was depressed, I spent entire nights praying for her. We were inseparable until I discovered she had been speaking ill of me for over a year. Not only that, she had made up lies about my family, saying we were proud and thought we were superior to others, brothers and sisters in the church. Her gossip reached the pastor, who began treating me coldly. When I confronted her in the church parking lot one Sunday after the service, she looked me in the eye and denied everything. She told me I was being paranoid, seeing problems where there were none. She even had the audacity to put her hand on my shoulder and say in that sweet voice she used to pray, "I'm going to pray for you, Sophia. I think there's a spirit of division at work in your heart." That night I cried until I had no more tears left. I felt as if someone had taken my heart and twisted it until every last drop of trust was squeezed out. I asked God to help me forgive, and publicly I acted as if everything was fine. When people asked me, I smiled and said in that soft, spiritual voice I had perfected, "I've already forgiven her." The Lord gave me the grace to do so, but it was a lie. Something in my heart hardened that day, something small at first, like a seed of bitterness I planted without realizing it. I began to subtly avoid Valentina. When she spoke at church, I found excuses to go to the bathroom. When she needed help with a ministry project, I was always too busy. And in my private prayers, though I never consciously admitted it, I asked God to show Valentina the consequences of her actions. I thought I had forgiven her because I had followed all the right steps. I had prayed for her, treated her civilly, even spoken well of her in public, but true forgiveness, the kind that frees the heart from resentment, never happened. I had buried my pain so deep that even I couldn't see it. 2 years later came the second wound, and this one was even more devastating. My younger sister, Camilla, was 19 when she met Andres at a party outside of church. I was 21. Andres wasn't a believer. He smoked, he drank, and everything about him screamed danger. Off my radar of a model Christian. I warned Camilla she was going down the wrong path. I showed her a verse about not being unequally yoked. I prayed fervently for God to open her eyes, but she didn't listen. She fell madly in love, and when she got pregnant months later, my world collapsed. Not for her, but for me, for the shame I felt, for the looks I imagined at church, for what people would think of our family, of our upbringing, of me as the older sister who was supposed to be the example. When Camilla came to tell me, her eyes were red from crying so much. She was trembling when she said, "I'm pregnant, Sophie. Andres left me when he found out. I don't know what to do. Mom and Dad are going to kill me. You're the only one who..." But before I could finish, I exploded. The words that came out of my mouth that afternoon, they're still after me. See what happens when you don't listen. I warned you. I told you this was going to end badly, the day my sister needed me and I judged her. Now the whole church is going to talk about us. What were you thinking, Camilla? Do you have any idea of the shame this brings to the family? She looked at me as if I had slapped her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but at that moment I could only think about my reputation, how this would affect me. The awkward questions I would have to answer at church. Camilla left home that very night. For 3 months we didn't hear from her. My parents were devastated, but I told them it was for the best, that she needed to learn the consequences of her decisions. When she finally returned with my newborn nephew in her arms, I acted like the perfect Christian aunt, held the baby, and smiled at her. I showed the family photos and told the whole church that God had restored our family, but inside, I hadn't forgiven Camilla. Every time I saw her, I remembered the shame I had felt, the nights I had spent rehearsing answers to the questions people asked me. The pastor's sermon on sexual purity, which coincided with my sister's pregnancy, and how everyone looked at me with pity. Even though he treated her well outwardly, there was an invisible barrier between us. I harbored resentment for the pain she had caused me, for the shattered expectations, for how she had ruined the perfect image of our Christian family. In my prayers, I said, "Thank you, Lord, for bringing Camilla back," but deep in my heart, there was a part of me that had never fully forgiven her, a part that kept a mental record of everything she had put me through. The third wound came just a year before the accident. I had met Daniel at a Christian youth conference when I was 22. He was a worship leader in another city. He had a voice that seemed to touch the heavens, and when he prayed, he did so with an intensity that made me believe he truly knew God. He was perfect on paper. My parents approved, the pastor approved, my Instagram approved when I posted our picture together with the caption, "I waited on the Lord and he brought the right person." 500,000 likes, 2,000 comments from girls saying we were the perfect example of a Christian relationship. We were together for 8 months, 8 months of supervised courtship, of dates in public places, of maintaining our physical purity, 8 months where I was already planning marriage. In my mind, I was choosing names for our future children. I imagined our joint ministry, until one Saturday afternoon, while checking my Instagram, I saw a photo that chilled me to the bone. Daniel was hugging another girl. The photo was from 2 weeks earlier in his city. The comments said, "What a lovely couple, and congratulations." When I confronted him, he didn't even have the decency to deny it. He told me she had been his girlfriend for 3 years, that they had never really broken up, that I was a mistake he made during a moment of spiritual confusion, that I should forgive him, but that he was going to marry her. The pain was so intense I felt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just the heartbreak of a broken relationship, it was the public humiliation, having to delete all those perfect Instagram photos, facing those 500,000 people who had celebrated our relationship and would now see me as the fool who was deceived. It was watching my image as a Christian with God's perfect discernment crumble. For weeks I cried in private, but in public I kept my composure. I posted a carefully worded message about how God had better plans, about trusting in His perfect will. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. "You are so strong, your faith is admirable, God, the accident that took my life has someone better for you." And I would respond to each one with Bible verses and words of spiritual wisdom. But in my heart I hated Daniel. I hated him with an intensity that frightened me. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted his marriage to fail. I wanted him to feel even a fraction of the pain I was feeling. I never admitted it out loud, not even to myself. When someone mentioned his name at church, I would smile and say, "I pray for his happiness," but it was another lie. Throughout all those years, after every hurt, after every betrayal, I remained the exemplary Christian everyone knew. I led Bible studies for young women, where I taught about forgiveness and grace. I was actively involved in all the ministries of the church. My biblical knowledge was extensive. My public prayer was eloquent. My testimony was inspiring. I had developed a dangerous skill, the ability to compartmentalize my spiritual life. On one hand, I had a functioning relationship with God. I prayed, read the Bible, tithed faithfully, and met all religious expectations. But on the other hand, there were areas of my heart that I kept carefully closed, even to myself. I had learned to use the correct Christian language to describe my feelings. Instead of saying, "I hate Daniel," I would say, "I'm processing disappointment in prayer." Instead of admitting that I hadn't forgiven Valentina, I would say, "I've set healthy boundaries." Instead of acknowledging my resentment toward Kamla, I would talk about steadfast love and natural consequences. I had become an expert at spiritual self-deception. I sincerely believed that I had forgiven because I had followed all the right steps. I had prayed for the people who hurt me, acted civilly toward them, and spoken positively about them in public. But real forgiveness, the kind that frees the heart from resentment and bitterness, had never happened. My Christian life had become a flawless performance, but my heart was torn between light and darkness. On May 15th of last year, everything changed. It was an ordinary Friday. I had just turned 24 2 weeks earlier. We were coming back from a prayer vigil that had lasted until dawn. Daniel, my boyfriend of 3 months, a different guy from my previous boyfriend, also named Daniel, was driving. I was in the passenger seat, exhausted, but with that particular satisfaction that comes from having fulfilled my spiritual duty. Once again, we had prayed for 3 consecutive hours. My knees ached from kneeling on the concrete floor. My lips were dry. The 7 minutes that changed everything, but it was worth it. I told myself, this is laying up treasures in heaven. This is what sets me apart from the others. This is what secures my salvation. I stared out the window, thinking about which verse I would post the next day, how I would describe the vigil experience in a way that would inspire my followers but also sound humble. I didn't see the truck coming. Daniel didn't either. A metal monster appeared out of nowhere, emerging from a side road. I only remember the scream, the screech of brakes, the flash of headlights, and then the sound of metal twisting against the glass, exploding from my own voice into a shriek. The pain, it was absolute. I felt my body being shaken. I felt something hot running down my face. I felt my ribs pressing against my lungs until I couldn't breathe. And in the midst of that chaos, I had a thought so clear that it stood out above everything else. This can't be happening to me. I'm different. I'm special. As if my perfect attendance at church were a shield against the randomness of the universe. I tried to pray, but the words wouldn't come, only fragments. Our Father who art, my God, why? Not even in my death could I be original. I could only recite it from memory, and then everything stopped instantly, like someone flipping a switch. The pain vanished, the sound ceased, and I found myself standing beside the wrecked car, staring at my own body trapped in the metal wreckage. There was blood everywhere, my head hung at a horrible angle, my eyes were closed, I wasn't moving. The paramedics would arrive in 4 minutes, but I didn't know that, so, the only thing I knew was that I was looking at my own dead body. I saw Daniel, also motionless, but breathing. He would live, I apparently wouldn't. I waited for angels, I waited for bright light. I waited for heavenly voices. I waited for the feeling of absolute peace and the certainty that I was being taken to the paradise I had spent my whole life trying to earn. I had done everything right, hadn't I? I had never missed church, I had kept my purity, I had served, I had given, I had been an example. What I really saw when I died, but none of that came. The world around the accident began to fade like smoke and I found myself in a different place. It wasn't the heaven I had imagined, it was a grey space with no definite shape, like being inside a fog. There were other people there, not many, but enough for me to realize this was happening to everyone. We looked at each other, confused, scared, waiting. Then I heard my name, not with physical ears, but inside my mind, Sophia. I turned and saw a figure approaching. He wasn't a greeting card angel. He looked like an ordinary person in a simple robe with a serious expression. But there was something in his eyes, a depth that made me know instantly that he wasn't human. Where am I? I asked. What is this place? I'm dead. Your body is dying, he said in a gentle but direct voice. The paramedics will arrive soon. They will try to save you, but before you decide if you want to go back, there's something you need to see. Decide if I want to go back. Fear crept up my spine. I don't understand. I lived a good life. I never missed church. I served God faithfully. I kept all the commandments. I was pure. I was devoted. You were loving. The figure interrupted me, and something in his tone silenced me. You were humble of heart. You truly forgave. Come on, Sophia. It's time for you to see what you truly were. If this story is touching your heart, stay with me. What comes next is the most important part. It's what could change your life forever. Before I could protest, the grey space shifted. Suddenly we were in my church, but different. I was there, but I wasn't. I could see everything, hear everything, but no one could see me, and what I saw made me want to disappear. It was a Sunday when I was 17. I was sitting in my usual pew in the 3rd row, my Bible open, my expression of devout attention perfectly calibrated. The pastor was giving a sermon on humility, and I was paying attention. I really was, but a part of my mind was doing something else. It was looking around, mentally cataloguing who was paying attention and who wasn't. Laura yawning 2 rows back, point for me. Carlos checking his phone, another point for me. Mrs. Martin is sleepy. I never fell asleep during sermons, never. And the worst part was seeing the small, smug smile at the corners of my lips, a smile no one else could see because I was looking straight ahead, but it was there, that poisonous satisfaction of being better than everyone else. I didn't whisper, looking at my 17-year-old self in horror. I wasn't like that. I truly loved God. Did you love God? The figure asked gently. Did you see yourself as someone who loved God perfectly? Or did you love how it made you feel to be admired? Let's keep looking. The scene changed. I was now 20 years old. I was in my room in front of the mirror practicing my expression for the Instagram photo. I had taken 43 photos searching for the perfect angle, the perfect light, the perfect expression of devout humility. My Bible open in front of me, a cup of coffee aesthetically placed, a plant in the background, but my face, God. My face wasn't the expression of someone genuinely seeking God, it was the expression of someone calculating how to be perceived. There was such a vast difference that I couldn't believe I'd never seen it before. This isn't fair, I said, feeling tears welling up that weren't tears because I had no eyes to cry. Everyone has thoughts like that sometimes. That doesn't mean everything I did was fake. You're right, the figure said, her tone gentle but relentless. Everyone struggles with pride. The difference is that you built your entire identity around denying it. You convinced yourself that you were different, special, better. And when people told you so, you never corrected them. You accepted it, you enjoyed it, you cultivated it. The scene shifted again. I was at the Christian university, walking with my friends. A girl I didn't know well, Daniela, walked past us. She was wearing a dress we considered too short, too tight. Her makeup was dramatic. She looked insecure, as if she knew she didn't fit in. The moment she passed, I didn't say anything, just smiled politely, but as soon as she was gone, one of my friends murmured, "Did you see what she was wearing? This is a Christian university, not a club," and I laughed and added, "Some people just don't understand that modesty is worship." I guess not everyone shares that conviction. I saw Daniela slouch, quicken her pace, her cheeks flushing, and I felt the crushing weight of what I had done. I had made her feel that she wasn't enough, that she didn't belong, that there was something wrong with her, because of her dress, because of makeup. She dropped out of college 3 weeks later, the figure said softly. She never went back to church. She felt so judged that she decided if that was what being a Christian was, she'd rather not be one. Your comment wasn't the only one, but yours coming from you. The golden girl, that one hurt the most. The truth is, it almost cost me my salvation. The words hit me like punches. I wanted to defend myself, to say it wasn't my fault, that I was only upholding biblical principles, but the excuses died in my throat because I knew there was nothing biblical about what I did. It was cruelty dressed as righteousness, and it didn't stop there. The figure showed me moment after moment, year after year. He showed me every time I walked past someone in need on the street without looking at them because I was in a hurry to get to church. He showed me the times I posted about serving the poor while secretly feeling uncomfortable when I had to touch them, when their smell disgusted me, but I smiled for the camera showed me how I treated Camilla when she told me about her pregnancy. I saw her face when I said those cruel words. I saw the pain she tried to hide. I saw how she completely shut down after that moment. I saw the 3 months she spent alone, scared, pregnant, without her family, because her older sister was more concerned about her reputation than loving her. He showed me the times I used Bible verses as weapons. Every is in the Bible was spoken with absolute certainty, with no room for dialogue, no humility to consider that perhaps my interpretation wasn't the only valid one. He showed me my relationship with Daniel, how we both used each other as spiritual props. He needed a girlfriend who would make his ministry look good. I needed a boyfriend who would validate my image. Neither of us really knew the other, neither of us wanted to know the other. But what really broke me was when he showed me the prayer meetings. We were in the church basement, 12 young people in a circle, holding hands, interceding, and there were fleeting moments, but real moments, where I genuinely felt something, where something in me touched something real, something bigger. But those moments never lasted, because as soon as I felt it, I immediately thought about how I would describe them later. Tonight I had a powerful encounter with God. I see, I was composing the post while supposedly in that sacred moment, and worse, he showed me the times I faked it, the times I forced tears because everyone was crying and I didn't want to be the only one with dry eyes, the times I raised my hands, not because I felt anything, but because it was expected, the times I fervently said amen to prayers I wasn't even listening to because I was thinking about how I looked. Stop, I finally begged, falling to my knees. Please, stop. I understand, I was awful, I was a hypocrite, I was everything Christ criticized in the Pharisees. Please, stop. The figure knelt beside me, and for the first time, I felt something like a hand on my shoulder. Sophia, this isn't punishment, it's the truth, and the truth is the only thing that can set you free. The paramedics are working on your body. Now you have a choice, one choice. You can go back. Your body is seriously injured, but you will survive if you choose to return, or you can move on now, but if you come back, you'll have to live with this truth every day. You'll have to face every person you hurt. You'll have to drop the mask and be real for the first time. The moment of choice, come back or stay. You'll have to rebuild everything knowing you wasted 24 years living a lie, and if I don't come back, then you're coming home, but not to the heaven you imagined earning with your perfection, but to the real home that was always waiting for you, because despite everything you saw, you're still loved. It was never about being good enough, it was about accepting that you could never be, and that's okay. The tears came then, real and uncontrollable, but I hurt so many people. Kamla, Daniela, everyone I judged. If I come back, how can I face that? With humility, with honesty, with the courage to ask for forgiveness without expecting it, with the willingness to be vulnerable for the first time. It won't be easy, it will be the hardest thing you've ever done, but it will also be the most real. I thought about my life, about all those perfect Sundays, all those empty prayers, all those calculated posts. I thought about the next 60 years I could have if I came back, years of carrying this truth, of facing my failures, of rebuilding from the ashes, and then I thought about Kamla, about how the last time we spoke I told her that her pain was her fault, how she probably thought my death was a relief. I thought about Daniela and all the others I hurt with my superiority. I thought about my parents who would lose their perfect daughter, but who might get to know their real daughter. I want to come back, I finally said, my voice trembling but firm. I want to try to do it right. I don't know how, but I want to try. The figure smiled with genuine pride. That is the first honest choice you've ever made, and look, you didn't make it trying to score points. You made it because it's the right thing to do, even if it's difficult. That's the beginning of true faith, Sophia. The gray space began to fade, and I felt a force pulling me back. But before disappearing completely, the figure said one last thing. Remember this, God never asked you to be perfect, He only asked you to be honest. The world doesn't need another Christian who acts like she has it all figured out. It needs broken people who are brave enough to admit it and love anyway. And then I woke up. The pain was instant and overwhelming. Every cell was screaming. There were tubes in my throat, monitors beeping, voices shouting, medical instructions. I opened my eyes and saw hospital lights, faces with masks, hands pressing on my chest. We have her back, I heard, sinus rhythm. I had been dead for 7 minutes. 7 minutes that changed everything. I spent 4 weeks in the hospital, broken ribs, severe concussion, ruptured spleen, countless stitches. Daniel came out with minor injuries. He visited me once, awkward. I didn't know what to say either. We broke up 2 weeks later, a brief conversation, relieved for both of us. Our relationship had been built on a mutual lie. My first day home, I asked to speak with Kamla. My parents seemed surprised. She and I had barely spoken in months. She came in wary, arms crossed defensively. I need to apologize, I said, the words coming out broken and clumsy, for everything I said about your pregnancy, for judging you, for making you feel like I wasn't enough, for not listening when you needed me most. I was so wrong. I'm sorry, so sorry. How is it to live after seeing the truth? She didn't say anything for a long moment, just looked at me with those eyes I'd seen shining with pain in that vision. Then the tears began to fall. I thought you'd never say that, she whispered finally. We didn't hug immediately. There was no instant movie-like reconciliation, but it was a start, the first honest step of many. I closed my Instagram account a week after leaving the hospital. 500,000 followers vanished with a click. Some wrote, concerned, most moved on. It turns out the inspiration they thought I was could easily be replaced by another girl with better angles and more aesthetically pleasing verses. I went back to church, but different. I sat in the back row instead of the third. I listened without categorizing who was paying attention. When the pastor spoke about humility, I cried because I finally understood how much I lacked it. And when a new girl came in wearing clothes that the old girl would have judged, I went up to her afterward and simply said, I'm glad you're here. I looked for Daniela. It took 6 weeks to find her on social media and 2 months to muster the courage to write to her. I told her what I had seen. I apologized without expecting her to forgive me. She blocked me. I understood, some wounds are too deep to heal with an apology. I looked for Valentina. I also wrote her a 4-page letter where I admitted that I had never truly forgiven her, that I had held a grudge for years, that I was sorry, that I didn't expect her forgiveness, but I needed her to know the truth. She replied 3 months later, just 2 lines, "Thank you for your honesty. I wasn't innocent either. I forgive you." We never became friends again, but the chain was broken. Today I am 25 years old. It has been almost a year since the accident. My life looks completely different. I no longer lead ministries or organize events. I'm no longer the golden girl. Many people in the church don't know what to do with me now. The perfect Sophia they knew is gone, and the real Sophia who has emerged is confusing, imperfect, and often has no answers. But I'm happier now than at any point during those 24 years of supposed perfection because, for the first time, I'm real. When I pray, I do it privately, without a camera, without an audience, just me and God, and with the brutal honesty to admit that I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. When I serve, I do it quietly, without publicizing it, without expecting recognition, and when someone tells me I'm an inspiration, which happens less and less, I tell them my story. I tell them about the hypocrite I was, about the lives I hurt, about how I had to die to learn that God never wanted my perfection, He only wanted my heart. If you're listening to this and you see yourself reflected in who I was, if you've built your identity around looking spiritual instead of being genuine, if you judge others to feel better, if your faith is more performance than relationship, I beg you, don't wait until you die to wake you up. Grace isn't something you earn with perfect Sundays, it's something you receive with empty hands and an honest heart, and sometimes the emptiest hands are those of someone who finally stopped pretending to have it all together. I died for 7 minutes, but in a way, I spent 24 years dead before that, alive in body, dead in spirit, playing a part instead of living a life. Now I'm finally alive, imperfect, broken, real, but alive. And that's worth more than 1,000 perfect Sundays.